Hare Hare. I think we are ready. Just let me double check. Yeah, we are ready. Okay, welcome to the Nectar Devotion Study. And let me turn my video on. Here we are in the spiritual world, communicating to you from Goloka Vrindavan. Anyway, all right, so we're going to chant Jai Radhamadava first, and then after that, we go on to the Nectar Devotion. Let me turn my phone off so we don't hear all sorts of beeps and buzzes. Jaya Jaya Radhamad Ava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radhamad Ava Kunya Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Giri Varadhari Gopi Janaballabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravatikacharya also Tata said to Shimad, His Divine Grace. Abhaya Chananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Goti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Vedas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrindiki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Gaur. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namadi Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nibhishesha Sunyavadi Paschata Desha Tarini. So Om Gana Timidanda Shagadan Shana Shalakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurve Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So we'll continue with the Nectar of Devotion, and as we do when we're reading the Nectar of Devotion, we recite this one stanza from Srinivasa Acharya's prayers of the sixth Goswami of Vrindavan. Nana Shastra Vicharana Kanipano Sadharma Samstapko Lokanam Hitakarano Tribhuvane Manyo Shavanya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Mandena Nataliko Mande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Go Palago. Okay? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So, with that in mind, we will go to the Nectar of Devotion. We're going to talk about devotional service surpasses all liberation. And just to reiterate what we've gone over before, there are 5 types of liberation. And you are so fortunate that I can't ask any of you what the 5 types are because I don't have a live audience today. Unfortunately, you're probably all not alive. But anyway, whatever. So, 5 types of liberation. First type is Sayuja, which is not accepted. And the other types are Samipya, Sarshti, Salokya, and Sarupya. And if you don't know what that means, I'll translate it. One is associating with the Lord, living on the same planet as the Lord, having the opulences of the Lord. And the final one is having a form like that of the Lord. That's called Sarupya. And as we mentioned before, yesterday, that a devotee will not accept Sayuja Mukti, that's the first type or the 5th type, depending on how you're counting, which means merging into the existence of the Lord, or apparently merging into the existence of the Lord, because that means ending one's personal, at least exchanges with the Lord. It's not really suicide, but for all intents and purposes, it's like spiritual suicide. So, in any case, the devotee doesn't accept those things, the merging, but the devotee doesn't even ask or aspire for the other types of liberation. We mentioned this last night. The reason is the devotee aspires simply to please Krishna. That's it. And if Krishna wants to give the devotee that type of liberation or a particular type of liberation other than Sayuja Mukti, the devotee accepts it out of service, but we don't aspire for it. In other words, a pure devotee, now let's talk about pure devotees, does not ask for anything else but to please Krishna. Someone who is not a pure devotee, they ask for a lot of other things. Like Dhruva Maharaj, who we spoke about before, who wanted a kingdom greater than that of Lord Brahma. And so many devotees want things. And just to be honest, we should all be honest with ourselves and with Krishna. What do we want? Don't imitate a pure devotee. Don't think you're a pure devotee and say, I have no material desires. Najanam, nadanam, najanam, nasundarim, kavitam, va, jagadisha kamaye. Mama janmani, janmani, shre, bhavatad, bhakti, hoyitaki, twaye. I mean, you can recite that prayer, but don't say to Krishna, hey, Krishna, I don't want beautiful, handsome man. Of course I don't. Anyway, I don't want any number of followers of mine. I don't want this. I don't want that. When you do want it. So better to say honestly to Krishna, Krishna, I am very embarrassed, but I want this, 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 and some of that. So, but at least we should say, if you don't give me this, 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 or some of that, then I'll still worship you. At least we should be on that stage. But we should be honest, reveal our minds to Krishna. Yes, Krishna, I do want my own airplane. I do want whatever. Anyway, I do want the latest phone. So anyway, we reveal our minds to Krishna this way. But we have to be careful. Sometimes even if you reveal your mind, Krishna will give it to you and it's going to be a pain in the whatever. So you have to be careful what you reveal your mind to. But you should be honest with Krishna and honest with yourself. Many people or many devotees think that they're more advanced than they actually are, and it's a big problem. And they think that they can enter into Radha and Krishna's loving exchanges. But I got news for you. Nobody's allowed to enter into Radha and Krishna's loving exchanges unless they're completely pure. If you come into the rasa dance with your smelly old body, anyway, you won't be allowed in. You won't even be allowed in the gates of Vaikuntha. Jai and Vijay will just simply kick you out. I won't even let you in. We'll just speak of kicking you out. So, anyway, so we have to be qualified. That's called adhikar. One has to have the adhikar for a particular type of prayer, position, realization like that. And if you don't know what your adhikar is, I will tell you. Anyway, so let's go to the nectar devotion without further ado. And we're reading about devotees are not interested in liberation. And now we're hearing many different quotes from the Shastras, particularly from the Srimad Bhagavatam, about different devotees, their prayers, their aspirations, and how they simply want to please Krishna. Okay. So the next section here in this chapter is about the Naga Patnis. The Naga Patnis are the wives of the Kaliya serpent, and they are pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Kaliya serpent actually just achieved devotional service by getting smashed on his head by the lotus feet of Krishna. There is a similar prayer by the Nagapatnis, wives of the Kaliya serpent, in the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, 16th chapter, verse 37. The Nagapatnis. So Naga means snake, in case you didn't know. And Patnis is plural for wife. And the husband is called Pati, and the wife is called Patni, feminine. And the husband is called Pati Dev, and the wife is not called Patni Dev. She may be called Patni Devi, just to be precise. Anyway, yes, in the Vedic system, the wife calls the husband Swami, which means, I won't tell you because it's not politically correct. Anyway, I won't tell you. Say there, so this Nagapatnis say there, Dear Lord, the dust of your lotus feet is very wonderful. Any person who is fortunate enough to achieve this dust does not care for the heavenly planets, lordship over all the planetary systems, the mystic perfections of yoga, or even liberation from material existence. In other words, anyone who adores the dust of your lotus feet does not care a fig for other perfectional stages. So what does the dust for Krishna's feet means? The service. That's really what we're talking about. Literally and figuratively, metaphorically. That one wants to serve. Anyone who serves Krishna, there's so much nectar in serving Krishna that even Krishna wants to serve himself, and therefore he appears as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's a similar statement in the 10th canto, 87th chapter, verse 21, where in the Shrutis, the Vedas personified pray to the Lord as follows. Dear Lord, it is very difficult to understand spiritual knowledge. Your appearance here, just as you are, is to explain to us this most difficult subject of knowledge of the Spirit. As such, your devotees who have left their domestic comforts to associate with the liberated acharyas, teachers, are now fully merged in the devotional service of your Lordship, and thus they do not care for any so-called liberation. So the devotional service of Krishna is the greatest happiness. Now, let me explain what is meant by happiness, because there was some discussion in class, which I didn't give, about happiness today. The greatest happiness is not even the ecstasies of devotional service. The greatest happiness is serving Krishna and seeing Krishna pleased. It's out of love. Many times we talk about ecstasies, which we'll get into later in the Nectar Devotion study. These are called bhava or bhavas, different types of ecstasies. But even higher than happiness is love. And as a practical example, once upon a time, a servant of Krishna was fanning Krishna. And as he was fanning Krishna, he started to feel ecstatico. And so he just didn't want to feel ecstatic because it would interfere with his service. So you see, that's a higher principle. Of course, we may not be on that platform. We are not on that platform, but one day we should understand that is the topmost. That's higher than bhava. It's called prema, complete, absolute love. And in one sense, that's the greatest pleasure. But I wouldn't even give it the label happiness, because usually we think of happiness as, just happiness. With, oh, I'm so happy today. But this pleasure, or this situation, let's just say situation, is actually the topmost pinnacle in devotional service. In explaining this verse, it should be noted that spiritual knowledge means understanding the self and the super soul or super self. The individual soul and the super soul are qualitatively one, and therefore both of them are known as Brahman or spirit. But knowledge of Brahman is very difficult to understand. There are so many philosophers engaged in the matter of understanding the soul, but they are unable to make any tangible advancement. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that out of many millions of persons, only one may try to understand what is spiritual knowledge. Manushanam sahasheshu kaschad yatati siddhye yatatam api siddhanam kaschad mam priti tatvataha. And out of many such persons who are trying to understand, only one or a few may know what is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this verse says that spiritual knowledge is very difficult to achieve, and so in order to make it more easily attainable, the Supreme Lord himself comes in his original form of Sri Krishna and gives instruction directly to an associate like Arjuna. That's Bhagavad Gita. Just so the people in general may take advantage of this spiritual knowledge. This verse also explains that liberation means having completely given up all material comforts of life. Oh, it's scary. Those who are impersonalists are satisfied by simply being liberated from the material circumstances, but those who are devotees can automatically give up material life and also enjoy the transcendental bliss of hearing and chanting the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna. Okay. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 20th chapter, verse 34, Lord Krishna says to Uddhava, "My dear Uddhava, the devotees who have completely taken shelter of my service are so steadfast in devotional service that they have no other desire, even if they were offered the 4 kinds of spiritual opulences." Remember we talked about the 4 kinds? Not the 5th kind, not the kind of merging, but having the same similar form to that of the Lord, associating with the Lord, the opulence is the Lord, living on the same planet as the Lord. They will refuse to accept them. Wow. Of course, if Krishna wants them to have it, they will accept it. But if they are just offered, all right, here, buddy, would you like to go back to Krishna Loka? They would say, only if Krishna tells me to. Only if Krishna wants me, Radha and Krishna want me to, will I go back to Krishna Loka. Otherwise, I will go wherever they tell me to. I am a surrendered soul. So what to speak of their desiring anything within the material world? Similarly, Lord Krishna says in another passage of the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 14th chapter, verse 14, my dear Uddhava, a person whose consciousness is completely absorbed in my thought and activities does not aspire even to occupy the post of Brahma or the post of Indra. These are demigods, of course. Brahma's in charge of the whole universe. He's the prime minister of the universe. And Indra is like the managing director, chief financial. No, it's not the chief financial. Kuvera is the CFO, chief financial officer. Indra is the chief managing director. Or the post of lordship over the planets, or the 8 kinds of mystic perfections. Remember, we talked about the mystic perfections. Making yourself small, making yourself big, floating, light, reaching out to another planet, Prapti City, or even liberation itself. In the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th chapter, verse 6, Lord Shiva says to Devi, my dear Devi, this great Brahmana sage Markandeya has attained unflinching faith and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such he does not aspire after any benedictions, including liberation from the material world. So, of course, Markandeya, who is described there, went through a lot of interesting experiences. I guess before he came to that stage, the stage who came to the sage, Markandeya wanted to see what Maya was, and he had an interesting experience that's described in the Bhagavatam. Similarly, there's a statement of the Padma Purana describing the ritualistic function during the month of Kartika, October, November. Actually, it's not Kartika now, it's later this year because of the leap month. During this month in Vrindavan, it is a regulative principle to pray daily to Lord Krishna in his Damodara form. The Damodara form refers to Krishna in his childhood when he was tied up with a rope by his mother, Yashoda. Dama means ropes, and Udara means the abdomen. So Mother Yashoda, being very disturbed by naughty Krishna, bound him around the abdomen with a rope, and thus Krishna is named Damodara. During the month of Kartika, Damodar is prayed to as follows. My dear Lord, you are the Lord of all, the giver of all benedictions. There are many demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva who sometimes offer benedictions to the respective devotees. For example, Ravana was blessed with many benedictions by Lord Shiva and also Lord Brahma. And Hiranyakashipu was blessed by Lord Brahma. But even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma depend upon the benedictions of Lord Krishna, and therefore Krishna is addressed as the Lord of all benefactors. As such, Lord Krishna can offer his devotees anything they want, but still the devotee's prayer continues. I do not ask you for liberation or any material facility up to the point of liberation. What I want as your favor is that I may always think of your form in which I see you now as Damodara. You are so beautiful and attractive that my mind does not want anything besides this wonderful form. In the same prayer, there's another passage in which it is said, my dear Lord Damodar, once when you were playing as a naughty boy in the house of Nanda Maharaj, you broke the box containing yogurt, and because of that, Mother Yashoda considered you an offender and tied you with rope to the household grinding mortar. At that time, you delivered the 2 sons of Kuvera, Nalakuvara and Manigriva, who were staying there as 2 Arjuna trees in the yard of Nanda Maharaja. My only request is that your merciful pastimes, you may similarly deliver me. The story behind this verse, it's a Damodar story, is that the 2 sons of Kuvera, the treasure of the demigods, were puffed up on account of the opulence of their father, and so once on a heavenly planet, they were enjoying themselves in a lake with some naked damsels of heaven. At that time, the great Saint Narada Muni was passing on the road and was sorry to see the behavior of the sons of Kuvera. Seeing Narada passing by, the damsels of heaven covered their bodies with cloth, but the 2 sons, being drunkards, did not have this decency. Narada became angry with their behavior and cursed them thus. You have no sense, so it is better if you become trees instead of the sons of Kubera, because they were naked, and trees are naked. Upon hearing this, the boys came to their senses and begged Narada to be pardoned for their offenses. Narada then said, "Yes, you shall become trees, Arjuna trees, and you will stand in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, Krishna's father. But Krishna himself will appear in time as the foster son of Nanda, and he will deliver you." In other words, the curse of Narada was a benediction to the sons of Kubera, because indirectly it was foretold that they would be able to receive the favor of Lord Krishna. After that, Kubera's two sons stood as two big Arjuna trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, until Lord Damodar, in order to fulfill the desire of Narada, dragged the grinding mortar to which he was tied and struck the two trees, violently causing them to fall down. From out of these fallen trees came Nalakuvara and Mandigriva, who had by then become great devotees of the Lord. So you may ask, why was the Lord tied to grinding mortar? That was his punishment. He broke the containers of yogurt and butter. So he was tied. So that's appropriate punishment for a child who doesn't behave themselves. There's a passage, nowadays, of course, you'd probably call 911 if that happened. There's a passage in the Haya Shirsha Pancharatra which states, "My dear Lord, O Supreme Person," people have this habit of calling at this time. Hold on one second. I have to turn this off. Wait. People have, somehow or other, they like to call that time. "My dear Lord of Supreme Personality of Godhead, I do not want any resultant benediction from my religious life, nor do I want any economic development, nor do I want to enjoy sense gratification nor liberation. I simply pray to be an eternal servant at your lotus feet. Kindly oblige me and give me this benediction." So these are different quotes of devotees who are rejecting or not asking for liberation. In the same Hayashirsha Pancharatra, after Nrsingadev wanted to give benedictions to Prahlad Maharaj, and Prahlad did not accept any material benediction and simply asked the favor of the Lord to remain his eternal devotee. In this connection, Prahlad Maharaj cited the example of Hanuman. The eternal servitor of Lord Ramchandra also set an example by never asking any material favor from the Lord. He always remained engaged in the Lord's service. That is the ideal character of Hanuman, for which he is still worshipped by all devotees. Prahlad Maharaj also offered his respectful obeisances unto Hanuman. There is a well-known verse spoken by Hanuman in which he says, "My dear Lord, if you like, you can give me salvation from this material existence or the privilege of merging into your existence. But I do not wish any of these things. I do not want anything which diminishes my relationship with you as servant to master, even after liberation." So, interesting story about Hanuman. At the end of Lord Ram's pastimes on this earth planet, Lord Ram said to his associates, "Let's go back to Godhead." And the way they went back to Godhead is that they all entered into the Sarayu River and ascended to the spiritual world, Ayodhya Loka. That is the planet of Lord Ram in the spiritual world. But Lord Ram said to his chief servant, Hanuman, "You stay here. This is what I want. And you should stay here as long as my glories are chanting." And so Hanuman is still here today in this place called Kim Purusha Loka, chanting Ram's glories. And the interesting thing is that Ram gave Hanuman a deity of himself to worship. Not a deity of Hanuman, but of Ram, of course. And so Hanuman worshipped this deity very enthusiastically. Later on, Hanuman gave that deity to Shripad Madhvacharya, one of the great acharyas in our disciplic succession. Of course, we're called the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. And that deity is still there today in Udupi in India. You can go to see that deity. And that deity not only was given to Hanuman, but previously was in the hands of a Brahmin when Lord Ramachandra was in Ayodhya, and previously was worshipped in Lord Ramachandra's dynasty before Lord Ramachandra appeared. Vivaswan, Manu, Ikshvaku, they all worship this deity. And that's also proof that Lord Ram's pastimes and Sita Ram's pastimes are eternal. And they occur again and again on what Prabhupada called a routine schedule. In a similar passage in the Narada Pancharatra, it is stated, "My dear Lord, I do not wish any perfectional stage by performing the ritualistic religious ceremonies, or by economic development, or by sense gratification or liberation. I simply pray that you grant me the favor of keeping me under your lotus feet. I do not want any kind of liberation, such as Salokya, to reside on your planet, or Sarupya, to have the same bodily features as you. I simply pray for your favor that I may be always engaged in your loving service." Pure devotee. Now, as I said, we may not be pure devotees, so admit what you are. By being honest, that's the first step you can make towards humbly submitting yourself at Krishna's lotus feet. Similarly, in the 6th canto, 14th chapter, verse 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit inquires from Shukadeva Goswami, "My dear Brahmana, I understand that the demon Vritrasura was a greatly sinful person, and that his mentality was completely absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance. How did he develop to such a perfectional stage of devotional service to Narayana? I have heard that even great persons who have undergone severe austerities and were liberated with full knowledge must strive to become devotees of the Lord. It is to be understood that such persons are very rare and almost never to be seen. So I am astonished that Vritrasura became such a devotee." So there's a whole story about him in the Bhagavatam. I don't think we'll tell the story. In the above verse, the most important thing to be noted is that there may be many liberated persons who have merged into the existence of the impersonal Brahman, but a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan is very, very rare. Even out of millions of liberated persons, only one is fortunate enough to become a devotee. I guess I will tell the story. So this Vritrasura was previously a great devotee. That was Chitraketu. And what happened is he got cursed by Parvati because he was joking with Lord Shiva, who happened to be his good buddy. I'm not going to tell the rest of the story anyway. He was joking with Lord Shiva. He got cursed by Parvati, and he accepted it. He said, "I'm willing to do anything that you want me to do because you're a pure devotee, Parvati, and Lord Shiva is greatest devotee of Krishna." And then Lord Shiva glorified him by saying the famous verse that I quoted yesterday, "Narayana paraksave nakutashina bibyati swargapavarga narakeshu apitul yarta darshana." Topmost devotee of the Lord can go to heaven, can go to hell, could be liberated. He sees everything as exactly the same because he's engaged in Krishna's service. That's the point. He always wants to please Krishna wherever Krishna wants to send him. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, earliest chapter, verse 20, Queen Kunti is praying to Lord Krishna at the time of his departure. "My dear Krishna, you are so great that you are inconceivable even to great stalwart scholars and paramahamsas," that's fully liberated souls. "So if such great sages who are transcendental to all the reactions of material existence are unable to know you, then as far as we are concerned, belonging to the less intelligent woman class, how is it possible for us to know your glories? How can we understand you?" In this verse, the particular thing to be noted is that the personality of Godhead is not understood by great liberated persons, but only by devotees such as Queen Kunti in her humbleness. She was humble. It's not that she was less intelligent. Although she was a woman and was considered less intelligent than a man, and that was just like society's arrangement. That was the nature of that particular society. Because the men were educated and the ladies were not, but actually we understand the women can be just as intelligent as men. They have the same native intelligence, although in many societies that's not actualized. Still, she realized the glories of Krishna. That is the purport of this verse. Another passage which is very important, Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 7th chapter, verse 10, is called the Atmarama verse, which is a verse we quoted yesterday. In this Atmarama verse, it is stated, that even those who are completely liberated from material contamination are attracted by the transcendental qualities of Krishna. In other words, someone who is already liberated, does not have any affinity or attraction for matter, gets attracted to Krishna. That proves that Krishna is transcendental. How about that? Because there's no attraction in the hearts of those individuals to anything mundane. The purport of this verse is that a liberated soul has absolutely no desire at all for material enjoyment. He is wholly freed from all kinds of material desires, yet still he is irresistibly attracted by the desire to hear and understand the pastimes of the Lord. We may therefore conclude that the glories and pastimes of the Lord are not material. Otherwise, how could the liberated persons known as Atmaramas? Atmarama means pleasure in the self, someone who takes pleasure in the self. And the super self is Krishna, and the self is the soul, and both are full of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. Be attracted by such pastimes. That is the important point in this verse. From the above statement, here we're going to be a little repetitive. It is found that a devotee is not after any of the stages of liberation. There are 5 stages of liberation. We've gone over this many times. Already explained as to become one with the Lord. And as I said before, they don't actually become one with the Lord. It's like a green bird entering a green tree. You think that the bird is actually merged into the tree. It remains part of the tree, but you cannot ascertain its or see its individuality. 2, to live on the same planet as the Lord. 3, to obtain the same bodily features as the Lord. 4, to have the same opulences as the Lord. And 5, to have constant association with the Lord. Out of these 5 liberated stages, the one which is known as Sayuja, or to merge into the existence of the Lord, is the last to be accepted by a devotee. It will not be accepted. The other 4 liberations, although not desired by devotees, still are not against the devotional ideals, if Krishna wants it. That's a big caveat. If Krishna wants it. If Krishna doesn't want it, it is against the devotee, for a particular individual. Let's say I want to go back to Krishna's planet. And Krishna says, you stay here and serve Prabhupada's mission. And I say, but Krishna, I have this desire to go back to the spiritual world. And Krishna says, no, I have the desire that you stay here, you rascal. So the right devotional ideal then is to do what Krishna wants. Because it's simply sense gratification if you're thinking of going somewhere where Krishna doesn't want you to go. Simple. Because devotional service, pure devotional service, means to do what Krishna wants actively and to do it gladly, devotionally, ecstatically. Some of the liberated persons who have achieved these 4 stages of liberation may also develop affection for Krishna and be promoted to the Goloka Vrindavan planet in the spiritual sky. In other words, those who are already promoted to the Vaikuntha planets and possess the 4 kinds of liberation may also sometimes develop affection for Krishna and become promoted to Krishna Loka. That may appear to be a little confusing, but there are other planets in the spiritual world. You may have Salokya, in which you go to one of the Vaikuntha planets, to a Yoja or something like that in the spiritual world. But Salokya also refers going to Krishna Loka. So those who are in the 4 liberated states may still be going through different stages of existence. In the beginning, they may want the opulences of Krishna, but at the mature stage, the dormant love for Krishna exhibited in Vrindavan becomes prominent in their hearts. As such, the pure devotees never accept the liberation of Sayuja, which is what I said, to become one with the Supreme. Actually, they don't become one with the Supreme. They just float, thinking themselves as one. Avashuddha buddhiya, their minds or their intelligence is impure. They're thinking they're one. Though sometimes they may accept as favorable the other 4 liberated states. All right, Krishna wants me to go back to Godhead. That's fantastic. Krishna doesn't want me to go. That's fantastic. Krishna wants to send me to hell. That's fantastic. But Krishna will never want to put you into the Brahmajyoti. Out of the many kinds of devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the one who is attracted to the original form of the Lord Krishna in Vrindavan is considered to be the foremost first-class devotee. Such a devotee is never attracted by the opulences of Vaikuntha or even of Dwarka, the royal city where Krishna ruled. The conclusion of Sri Rupa Goswami is that the devotees who are attracted by the pastimes of the Lord in Gokula or Vrindavan are the topmost devotees. At the same time, we are attracted, let's say, it's not that you're repulsed by the opulences of Dwarka. You know, like you're reading Krishna book, all right, here's Krishna book. Oh, now we go to Dwarka, I'm not attracted by this. No. Because when you're a pure devotee of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, you read about the pastimes of Dwarka and you understand Keshavadrita, Dwarka, Leela, whatever. Dwarka Hari Rupa. Anyway, so you understand that is the same person. If you love someone, you love everything they do, but you remember their original form as they're doing it. So let's say you see Krishna with his wives, 16,108 of them, quite a bit. So let's say you see Krishna with Rukmini, okay, one of his wives, actually the first wife. And then if you're a Vrindavan Vasi, I mean you're a resident of Vrindavan, you're focused on Vrindavan, you actually see Rukmini, not Rukmi. Rukmi is the brother of Rukmini. You'll see Rukmini as an expansion of Chandravali, who is one of Krishna's girlfriends in Vrindavan, who, anyway, won't talk too much about her. And then you will see Satyabhama as expansion of Radha in Vrindavan. So you actually see this way. And our great Acharya, Sri Rupa Goswami, points this out in his wonderful literature, Lalita Madhava. You actually can see how pure devotees see the other pastimes of the Lord in different abodes other than Gokula or Goloka Vrindavan, how they perceive them. It's really interesting, because Rupa Goswami is actually revealing his own realization in the context of this play known as the Vidagdha Madhava. Lita Madhava, sorry. Vidagdha Madhava is the pastimes in Vrindavan. And if you're interested in hearing this play and a recitation done by yours truly, you can go on ISKCON Desire Tree, look it up in my name, or there's even an app with the Lalita Madhava and Vidagdha Madhava, and you can hear it. It's a very nice recitation with musical background. Wonderful play. One day I'd like to see a group of devotees do the play. That would be my intense personal desire, actually do the play. Of course, we had dances like that, but I'd like to see actual play done one day, if I am fortunate enough. A devotee who is attracted to a particular form of the Lord does not wish to redirect his devotion to other forms. For example, Hanuman, the devotee of Lord Ramchandra, we went too fast, knew that there's no difference between Lord Ramchandra and Lord Narayan, and yet he still wanted to render service only unto Lord Ramchandra. That is due to the specific attraction of a particular devotee. There are many, many forms of the Lord, but Krishna is still the original form. Although all of the devotees of different forms of the Lord are in the same category, still it is said that those who are devotees of Lord Krishna are the topmost in the list of all devotees. And I'll tell you a very interesting story that illustrates this point, how devotees are focused on their particular form of the Lord Ishtadevata. Here's the story. Once upon a time, Krishna was in Dwarka with Rukmini. And Krishna, he wanted to see Hanuman, because Krishna and Ram, they're the same person, as we find described in the Brahma Samhita. Advaita Chutta Nadi Rananta Rupamadhyam Purana Purusham Aviyovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlavam Adurlavam Atmabhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That there are many expansions of Krishna, but they're all the same person acting simultaneously. But they're only one. There's one God. We don't worship many gods. So, what happened is that Krishna wanted to see Hanuman. So he sent a message. And how did he send a message? He sent a message through his bird carrier, whose name is Garuda. And he said to Garuda, you bring Hanuman here. I want to see him. And so Garuda flew to Kim Purushaloka, where Hanuman was. And he found Hanuman there. And he said, my dear Hanuman, you are coming with me to see Lord Krishna in Dwarka. And Hanuman said, no, I've been told by Lord Ram to stay here and worship him. I have my deities, and I am chanting Sitaram, Sitaram, Raghupati, Raghava, Rajaram, Pati Bhavana, Sitaram. So please go back where you came from. And Garuda, who is so humongous, big, powerful, described the one time Indra fired a thunderbolt at Garuda, and Garuda just dropped one feather, and that feather was practically as big as the whole universe. And Garuda, when he wants to eat something, he eats. He's not a vegetarian. He eats elephants and different things like giant tortoises bigger than this planet. You know, he's a humongous bird. He's the original big bird. So Garuda said to Hanuman, guess what? You are coming with me, whether you like it or not, monkey. And Hanuman said, no. And Hanuman flicked his tail. And with that tail, he sent Garuda tumbling head over, where tail, I guess birds have tails, head over tail, all the way back to the lotus feet of Dwarkadish. That's Krishna and Dwarka. And Krishna said, what happened, Garuda? And Garuda was, of course, a little proud as himself. He was very reluctant to tell the whole story. So he said, yes, I couldn't bring him. He sent me tumbling head over tail back to your lotus feet. Because Hanuman would not come even when Krishna asked him to come, because he was so loyal to Lord Ram and would only take orders from Lord Ram, even though he knew that Krishna and Ram are the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then Krishna had a whole plan. He said, I know how to get Hanuman to come here. He thought for a second. And he said, okay, Garuda, you go back. I know you're going to be a little scared of that monkey. You go back and you have a talk with Hanuman, and you tell Hanuman that actually Lord Ram and Sita want to see him. So Garuda got very, very enthusiastic, flew back and said, Sita and Ram want to see you. And Hanuman, knowing everything, he flew back on his own power to Dwarka, flew to Dwarka on his own power. And there he saw that Krishna had manifested himself, Dwarkadish, Krishna and Dwarka, had manifested himself as Ram. And Rukmini had manifested herself as Sita Devi, and he was extremely happy. So you see this in many instances where there's devotees who are really just focused on the worshipful form of the Lord, which is eternally their worshipful form. Everybody has different tastes. In Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, you have Lord Chaitanya's associate, Murari Gupta, who is considered to be an incarnation of Hanuman, and he was focused on worship of Ram. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he tried his best, to initiate him in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Okay, Murari Gupta, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And Murari Gupta, he chanted it, but he tried. But then he simply reverted back to chanting Sitaram, 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 Sitaram. And Lord Chaitanya praised his loyalty to his worshipable deity. And a similar thing happened with the brother of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. Brother of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, Anupama Srivallabha, was a devotee of Lord Ram. And Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, being his elder brothers, in this way they were like his gurus. because elder brother is very much respected in the Vedic culture. Jesh Bratashri. Anyway, I guess I've been watching too many Hindi movies. So they So anyway, they said, our dear brother, you have to really just focus yourself on Krishna and Vrindavan. And he tried. He stayed up all night and he was crying. He couldn't do it. He was so much in love or attached to Shri Ram. So we should not decry or criticize devotees in different cultures who are attached to different forms of the Lord or different incarnations of the Lord or different devotees, pure devotees of the Lord. This is wonderful. Like if someone's attached to Lord Jesus, that's wonderful. It's simply wonderful. We praise that particular individual. Of course, we know, according to the Vedic literatures, Ete Changsa Kalakpumsa, Krishna is to Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna exhibits more qualities than any other form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He plays a flute. He has intimate devotees, unexcelled pastimes, and his beauty is, well, can't even describe, indescribably beautiful. Much more. These four qualities only Krishna manifests. Lord Vishnu doesn't play a flute. Lord Vishnu is indescribably beautiful, but Krishna is unlimitedly more indescribably beautiful. And Krishna has these intimate pastimes and intimate devotees. What do I mean by intimate? His devotees come up to him and they slap him on the back or they wrestle with him. Nobody wrestles with Lord Vishnu. Or what to speak of wrestling with Lord Nrsingadev. That would be a disaster. You cannot have that relationship with Lord Nrsingadev. But with Krishna, you can roll on the ground, wrestle, become his mother, father, like this. Anyway. Okay, so we will end here, and tomorrow we will continue with the next chapter, which is very interesting, the purity of devotional service. These are very wonderful descriptions of general descriptions of devotional service here in this part of the Nectar of Devotion. So, hold on a second. So, on this happy note, anybody, okay, let's let you ask some questions. Okay, you are all allowed to unmute yourselves right now. Oops.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah.
Dandavat Pranam. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I can hear you. Let me just see if I want to see you too.
It's Bay Chaitanya.
I gotta remove my spotlight to be able to see you. Okay. Oh, now I can see you, Bhai Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances.
So, you have a question?
Yes, just in relation to this liberated state that you were just talking about. So, what about when you go back to Godhead and say you've got all the variegatedness of life forms there, such as, you might want to serve Krishna in the form of a tree or a cow. So what sort of liberated state would that be? How would that work?
Well, that would be living on the same planet as the Lord, which is what you'd have several of the different, at least two of the different states of liberation. These are not mutually exclusive states. Let's say you were a cow in Goloka Vrindavan, you'd be living on the same planet as the Lord and hopefully associated, personal association with the Lord. You'd have those two.
Right.
And I guess because you'd have a spiritual body, you might even say you'd have the same opulence as that of the Lord. But your form would not be that of the Lord's. So in the Vaikuntha planets, generally when we're talking about the Sarupya Mukti, it's generally understood to be on the Vaikuntha planets where one actually looks like Lord Vishnu or Lakshmi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it does. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, you're driving a car now?
Yeah, I just pulled over to ask the question. Thank you, Maharaj.
That's good. I wouldn't want you to get in an accident
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj.
Middle
Hare
class.
Krishna.
That would be a disaster.
Hare
Okay,
Krishna,
who
Vijay.
else has a question they can ask?
Hare Krishna, Vijay. Can you hear me?
Rishikesh. Yeah,
Hello?
speak.
Can you hear me?
Rishikesh, you always have to speak closer to the
Yes, sorry.
microphone because somehow or other you're always a little soft. Okay, ask your
Oh,
question.
sorry. I just wanted to understand. Yeah, my question is, uh, when you say to pray to Krishna, ultimately whatever Krishna desires should be our prayer. Right? I mean, sometimes we pray for our personal benefit, or we pray that please pick me up from this miserable existence, put me there
Yeah.
as a destiny or a street. This also is kind of a personal prayer. But if Krishna doesn't want it, I mean, what should be our mood to pray?
Well, it depends on your. It depends
Sometimes
on your
some devotees
platform.
fall sick. We pray to Krishna.
Yeah, let me answer. Let me answer that. Uh, it actually depends. I'm putting you on mute, so because you got a lot of noise. It actually depends on your personal platform of devotional service. If you look at the Shikshashtika prayers, they're all indicating a particular platform of devotional service. Now, you probably heard some of my classes where when I tell you or relate that each one of the Shikshashtika prayers is connected with a particular platform of devotional service. So, of course, uh, that platform begins with Ado Shraddha, initial faith, which is, the first verse, actually 2 verses of the Bhagavad, of the Shikshashika verse, and then goes all the way up to Prema, where Lord Chaitanya, in the mood of Radharani, prays, Krishna, you may crush me by your embrace, you may leave me brokenhearted by not being present before me, you're completely free to do anything and everything, and you always remain my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So, really, we can pick a verse in the Shikshashika that relates with our particular level of devotion. Usually, the verse that relates with most people's level of devotion is Ayananda Tanuja Kinkaram. Patitam mam mishame vavam buddho kripaya tavapada pankaja stita duli sadrasam vachintaya. O son of Maharaj Nanda, I am your eternal servant, but somehow or other I've fallen into this horrible ocean of birth and death. Please, I beg you, save me and fix me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. So most of us, I think, could relate to that level. And some people can relate to the level of Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim and be honest about it. And some people can relate to the level of Ashlishva. Anyway, you get the idea. Pure devotional service. So basically, try to. I'll answer that question about Udupi in a second. So try to understand what level you're at in devotional service. Whether you're on the level Ado Shraddha Sadhu Sangota, associated with devotees, Bhajana Kriya, are you getting rid of the anarthas shat, and then are you stable or steady in devotional service? Do you have a taste for devotional service? Examine the different levels of devotional service. Try to understand how advanced or how little advanced you are, and then pray accordingly. I mean, if you're on the level of Dhruva Maharaj, then I guess you pray for a kingdom greater than that of Donald Trump. Oh, no, sorry. Lord Brahma. That was deliberate. Obviously, these are not mistakes. Obviously, if you're, it depends, what level you're at. Like in the mundane religion in America, people pray for prosperity, the prosperity-based religion. My dear Lord, please give me a new car. And, in India, of course, we also have this, what is it, Satyanarayan Katha, where people pray, Om Jaya Jagadisha Hari, Swami Jaya Jagadisha Hari. I want a new car, Om Jaya Jagadisha Hari. Get rid of my wife, Om Jaya Jagadisha Hari. Like that. No, they don't say get rid. It's always a positive thing. And in Satyanarayana Katha, they actually tell stories about how people worship Krishna and they come to Krishna. And I guess for some people, it's the only way they're going to come to Krishna. As Krishna says, people looking for wealth, people are inquisitive, people are looking for knowledge, or people in distress, they come to Krishna. Just like in our temple, one of the temples I established in Suva, we have a very nice picture of Sudama Brahman. And for those of you who don't know the story about Sudama Brahman, he was poverty-stricken, and he simply offered Krishna some broken rice, and he became so rich that when he went back home, he found himself in a mansion with a swimming pool and a Tesla in his garage. So, of course, I added a few things. I added a few points about his house. But he had a lot of servants and everything like that. So people are attracted by that. I'm not saying, but at the same time, we have to say that's not the goal. That's not a higher platform. It's not a high platform. It's a very low platform. But better a low platform than no platform. Akama sarvakama mokshagama dharati tavrena bhakti yogeni yajeta purusham param. Better you're worshiping Krishna for an ulterior purpose than you're not worshiping Krishna. That's the point. So, but ultimately, we understand that someone like Prabhupada, they're simply saying to Krishna that, whatever you want, Krishna, way you can crush me by your embrace, leave me brokenhearted by not being present before me. You're free to do anything you want. Ultimately, that's what someone like Prabhupada is actually thinking. Whatever you want, Krishna. Like Prabhupada, when he came to America, he said, if you want, you can make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. You can purify these people with the Bhagavatam. That's dependence. But right now, it's important to be honest. So if you have some other prayers, my dear Lord Krishna, save me from this horrible ocean of birth and death, then pray like that. That's perfectly appropriate to pray like that. You understand? Perfectly appropriate.
What about if you have questions from devotees sick? How can we pray? Can we say that, dear Krishna, should we say, if you so desire, then please cure this devotee? How do we pray to Krishna? Like if someone is sick in the hospital, we want to pray for such devotee.
We pray in accordance to how they want us to pray. Like Prabhupada instructed us, I was praying for Prabhupada to be cured. But Prabhupada instructed us something different, so I had to change my prayer. Prabhupada actually told us how to pray for him. He said, but if the devotee says, pray for my recovery, then pray for recovery. I mean, when a pure devotee gives you instructions, I don't think you have an option. But still, even if you pray, Krishna's still going to do what he wants to do, but he'll hear your prayer, and it may convince him, it may actually convince him to cure that person. If you pray enough, it may convince him. But it's not that if it's not cured, that it's your fault you didn't pray enough. Krishna has his own will, and this person who's in the hospital or whatever has their own will too. So these are things that, we don't have the adhikar to interfere with Krishna's will. But we can express our will, and we can try to influence Krishna. You understand? We can try to influence Krishna. All right?
That's good.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So any other questions or comments? Wow, no one else has questions here. Everyone else is satisfied in this material world.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. If nobody is asking question, I'll ask.
Okay, Radhika. So what's your question?
Yeah, please accept my humble obeisances to Guru Maharaj. My question is regarding full surrender and let's say, or actually, let me see, like, I'm trying to think it out. So it's like, or self-defense, say. So basically, so my question is sorry regarding full surrender and then self-defense. So we learned that from just say Jara Bharata's pastime that we don't really have to look at our externals, like what others are doing to you and to anybody else and all that. We need to like fully surrender to Krishna, and Krishna will take care of it. And then again, we also learn, like from your classes as well, like we need to self-defense is important as well. And then we learn, and then we learn from Bhagavad Gita, like Krishna gives us intelligence, so we need to use our intelligence as well.
Yeah.
So, and then so I'm thinking, okay, so in a case like say we so there's a devotee, probably like really envious nature and likes to control, and so and you like to do a love your devotion in a loving devotion way, but then the person is natured that way, and with ignorance you just ignore the person, and then with the and the person likes to probably take advantage of their humble nature, just to just for his or
Yeah.
her benefit, like to say for false prestige and all that. So so in that sense, would you just for a person, um, should the person stand up and for a self defense, or just leave
Yes,
it to
of
the
course.
Krishna?
Of course, you stand up for your self-defense. Unless you're Jad Bharata. I mean, the whole story you cited was that of Jad Bharata, who was on a different platform.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, completely. He was actually on a very high platform of devotional service, and he wanted to just like have nothing to do with this world, and he had no interest in this world, and he didn't want to fall into Maya. So he allowed himself basically to be abused.
Right. Yeah.
He allowed it because that was deliberate. He wanted to be abused so that he could actually be detached from this world.
Hmm.
But that was his mission. That really is not our mission.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, in different ages, let me explain something. In different ages or different avatars, there's different systems of becoming detached from the world. Like
Hmm.
you have Lord Rishabhadev, who also did something very similar. He allowed himself to be, basically at least verbally abused by people
Hmm.
in other ways.
Yes.
So, and he was doing this thing called Jata Yoga.
Hmm.
So that might have been bona fide at that point, but at this point, it is not. The only process for detachment in this world is Krishna Nam Sankirtan. And in order to do Krishna Nam Sankirtan, you have to defend and protect your body and mind.
Right.
That's the only way. Ekon Dharma, Krishna Nam Sankirtan. It's the only Dharma in this Kali Yugas. Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam. Kalo Nishteva, Nishteva, Nishteva Gatiranyata. So we don't allow ourselves to be abused. I do not allow myself to be abused. I do not allow myself someone to have guilt trips
Mm.
on me. If someone pulls a guilt trip, I run in the other direction. And that's a message for anyone who might be listening. I just go, goodbye. I have had enough of this. So it's not that I said like, oh, so you know what a guilt trip is.
Mhm.
The guilt trip is if you really love Prabhupada, you would listen to me. Because I'm entitled to do that with my disciples. If you really love me, your guru, you would do this. No, that's a guilt trip. And so, that's it's not the way to interact with people. It's not going to help us become Krishna conscious. Maybe in the Middle East, if one was a member of a particular religion, it's all right, but not for me. So anyway, yeah, don't allow yourself to be abused. You have a right, your body, your mind, your words, manasadeha, gehe, yokishamar, arpilam tu your pade. Nanda Kishore, your mind, body, words, everything belongs to Krishna. You understand?
Yes.
That's really important to understand.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to answer. Gopal sent me a funny text. So anyway, so I'm not going to say what he said. But I'm just going to answer another text question that Radha Padma sent me. Which temple is the deity of Lord Rama in Udupi? It's not in the main Udupi Krishna temple. It's like facing, next to the Udupi Krishna temple. When you go to Udupi, just ask where it is. It's not as famous as the Udupi Krishna that was discovered by Madhvacharya. Actually discovered it in sandalwood. Someone gave him a whole chunk of sandalwood and he discovered the deity inside the sandalwood. That's Udupi Krishna. But the Lord Ram deity was given to him by Hanuman. Sita Ram deity was given to him by Hanuman. So on that happy note, we are going to end now. Thank you very much. It's been very nice knowing all of you. And we'll see everybody tomorrow evening, same time, same station. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki